Hi, all. Welcome to another AW interview. Eilidh Doyle, not too long after announcing your retirement, I guess the first question is, and to be fair, you've pretty been sick and tired about this question. Like you've pretty done so many interviews about kind of, retiring. Was it an easy decision? But, um, you know, you've had your son Campbell, you've taken a break from athletics. Coming back, what was it like to then decide, do you continue or do you retire? How did that process go?
Yeah, well, it's a funny one. It's probably there's quite a lot of answers because it's kind of stemmed over a long period of time. But I think initially, I remember coming back from the Gold Coast in 2018 in Australia, and I had a really great time out there that trip. Being able to carry the flag and win a medal. And I remember coming back, and my husband and I had a little break away before we sort of were going to get ready for the rest of the outdoor season. And I said to him at that point, do you know, I'd be really content retiring now. I'm really happy with like my career. That would be a really nice way to go out. And I think once you mention retirement and it's in your sort of consciousness, then I think that's kind of you starting to think about, right, what am I going to be doing after the sport? What am I going to be doing, when I get to that stage where I'm not going to be running anymore? So I'd say it's probably been in my head since then. But there's always been something that's kind of pulled me back in. So after the Gold Coast, the Europeans were obviously that year. Then it was the European Indoors in Glasgow. So there was always something to keep me going. So it was like, well, I won't retire now. I'm going to go on a bit longer. I'm going to go on a bit longer. And then I had obviously got pregnant and had Campbell. And then the sort of pull there was to get back after having a baby. And so with Tokyo being 6 months later after having him, I thought that's a really good target, to try and make Tokyo. It'll give me the motivation to get back after having the baby physically, and be ready. And in all honesty, had Tokyo gone ahead last year, if everything had been as normal, I probably would have retired after that, because I think that would have been a nice way to sort of finish it, make my third Olympics, and that would have been me. But this last year, just with the sort of uncertainty around everything, my motivation has been up and down. There's been days I'm at the track and I've been really kind of hitting sessions hard and really motivated to then go out and race. But then there's been other days where it's just been a bit low. And I think for me, the love of training and being an athlete is still there, but actually the love to go away and race, all the things that appealed to me about going away, being on the circuit, traveling the world, going away to championships isn't there anymore, and it's maybe because I am a mum now, and going to Tokyo will be very different now than what it would have been had it been in 2020. My whole plan in 2020 was to come back after having a baby, to go out to Tokyo as a family, as a unit, to say, I'm back, I'm here. I've got my coach, I've got my husband, I've got my wee boy. We're all here together to come out here and compete. Whereas that wouldn't be the case this year. So I think it's been a little bit of everything, that's just made me realise that actually I think it's time just to step away. And it became, I don't want to be doing it for the sake of doing it, just to try and make another Olympics. I want to do it because I want to be there. And so it was just one day at training. I thought, I'm not really sure why I'm doing this anymore. And it was a case of having a conversation with Brian, and just saying, actually, yeah, I think it's now time to step away. And although it was sad, it felt right. It felt like the right thing to do.
I was about to say, how much of that was mental and how much of that was physical? Was that due to kind of you just didn't really believe that you kind of had the physical capability to kind of challenge for what your expectations would be in Tokyo? Or was it just the mental side of just getting up every single day and going to training, and then you got the responsibilities of looking after Campbell, of course?
Yeah, I think it was the mental side completely. I think my husband said to me, he said to me, physically, I can get you back. We can get you back ready to compete. Maybe not necessarily at the level that I've competed at previously. And then obviously I had a couple of injuries. So then we decided, actually, let's target just the 400 meters. And he said, look, I can get you back in a shape that you can go and compete. But he said to me, the biggest challenge is your mindset, and afterwards he said, when I eventually said to him, I think I'm ready to retire, he said to me, I'm glad, I'm relieved, because he said it was a challenge getting you motivated. He always said that, yeah, physically I could get back, but it was my mindset and my mental side. And I think that's what I probably took for granted throughout my career, just how much that makes a difference to performance. Yes, physically you can have all the tools in your armory, but actually mentally, if you're not wanting it as much, or if you're not as up for it as much, then it can be massive, and it can be detrimental to your training. It can be detrimental to performance. And so, yeah, I think the biggest battle was the mental side of things.
What was the thought process kind of going in your head when you were kind of thinking about announcing the whole thing? What was the kind of reaction that you were expecting at the time? Because the reaction has been, it's been amazing. I've seen, literally thousands of comments online. The picture of, you put up as a kid, I think that says a lot about, yourself, really, that, that you kind of look back to when you was at Pit Reevy Athletics Club, but at such a young age. And then you kind of going from that to then obviously being on an international stage, winning medals. What was the kind of the reaction that you kind of expected when you put all the stuff out about your retirement? Because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, definitely not that. I thought about what I was wanting to say for a while, just because I thought I wanted to go out there and I want it to be very personal, and I want to be the person to put it out there as well. So I kind of planned when I was thinking about doing it, and I'd spoken to British Athletics a couple of days before. I'd spoken to Scottish Athletics just to kind of give them the heads up, and I said, look, I'm just to let you know, this is what's going to be happening. I'm going to be announcing it. I said, feel free to share it if you want me to sort of give you any other quotes, or if you different from my statement, then I can do that. Kind of not expecting it to take off as much as it did. Like I'd taken the dog a walk in the morning, and I thought, right, at 10 o'clock I'll put the tweet out, and I'll put it on my Instagram. And I was going to go through to my mum's that day anyway, because I thought if I've got a couple of phone calls to do, then she can look after Campbell, because Brian was working. And I sent the tweet out at 10 o'clock, but I wasn't organised to get ready or anything like that. And my phone just blew up, and I was reading all these messages, and then I was like, I'm late, I'm not ready, and Campbell's not ready, and it ended up being a real rush that day. But it was just so lovely, in particular from the comments and the messages that you get from your sort of fellow teammates and people on the team and people that you've worked with. I think they were the ones that were really special. They were all brilliant. I was really quite overwhelmed with the reaction. And the messages that I got from people and people that I didn't expect to get messages from, that said that I'd had an impact on them, and that was really nice, because you just don't know. You're just getting on with your sport, you're just getting on with your event and your performances, and then to hear, other athletes say that I'd made a difference, or I'd helped them out and things like that. It was really humbling and just really lovely to hear as well. And it was a pretty overwhelming and emotional day when I actually announced it.
Because I guess that must be quite a weird thing, because you've had this amazing career, of course, but when you actually see people that they tell you personally that you've actually affected their lives, and that it makes it worth it, doesn't it? The medals are one thing, but then you've got actually, I'll go back to what Seb Coe mentioned about inspiring the generation from London 2012. But essentially, athletes are coming to you, and you've kind of helped them along that path, and that must mean almost more than medals in a way.
Yeah, massively. The medals are nice, and they're the things you get to kind of have and and look back on. But actually, it's the memories, it's the people you meet, it's the things that you and the thing is, I learned so much good things off other athletes. I remember coming onto the team and athletes that took me under their wings. I remember Lee McConnell was one of the only athletes I knew, first of all, when I first made teams. I remember Christine really taking me under her wing when I started becoming part of the 4x4 squad. And I learned from those guys, of how to conduct myself, how to behave. And one of the things I always tried to do when I was on teams was, if there was ever anybody on their own, or sitting on their own in the dining hall or at dinner or lunch, I used to always just go and just say, would you like to join us, or or join me, or are you okay sitting on your own? Because I always kind of felt that it's hard when you're that new one in the team and you sometimes don't know people, or you sometimes feel a little bit intimidated. And I always tried to just make sure that there was never anybody that felt on their own or isolated. And sometimes people are like that as athletes, they want to go and sit on their own, so it was fine, they would sit on their own. But I did try and consciously make an effort to make sure people were okay within the team, and I learned from those guys before me, I learned all the good kind of ways to behave, and it's one thing that I kind of put credit to my mum and dad. They always kind of said to me, my mum and dad have never really been that bothered about how successful I was as an athlete. They've always just been more proud of me, the way I conduct myself as, with sportsmanship. That was always their one thing that they always taught me throughout, joining Petrivi, all my younger years. It was all those sort of, you make sure you congratulate all your opponents after a race. You make sure you say well done. You make sure, you wish people good luck, regardless of the result. And that's something I've always tried to do, because otherwise I would, my mum and dad would be on me, like anything.
Well, the thing is, like, your family has a massive sporting background. I mean, there's that story, isn't it? I think because you're a big Hearts fan, and I won't ask you your thoughts on Robbie Nielsen and kind of how the season's going, but maybe at some point. But your sisters, one of your sisters competed in the triple jump. Your brother Jamie played football. You as a youngster, if I'm right in saying, went into swimming and won the under-13 Scottish schools butterfly title. But then I've read that there was a funny story with your, Ronnie and Jill, your mum and dad. Well, dad and mum, that they went on a honeymoon to a Hearts Arbroath game, so that you could have had, the Maldives, the Seychelles, Bora Bora, and they went to a football game. Between Hearts and Arbroath.
I think it was Hearts Dundee. I think they'd gone to Arbroath. That was where their honeymoon had ended up being, and then they ended up going to a Hearts Dundee game. So I think, and it's credit to my dad with that, because my dad was a Hearts fan. He was the one who chose to be a Hearts fan. So I think my mum being from Dundee, I think her family were I think Dundee United would have been probably more Dundee United fans had they, I think, been into football, but I don't think they really were. So yeah, I think that was it. As soon as they were married, it was like, right, you're coming to a Hearts game now, and that's it. And then now my mum is season ticket holder at Hearts, and the whole family are Hearts fans. So it's
brilliant.
But that's it. My mum swam for Scotland as well, so we were kind of all brought up surrounded by sport. Taking part in all different sports, watching sport on the telly and things like that. So it's kind of inevitable that would end up being, such a huge part of my life.
So how did you get into athletics then? From swimming always the big passion, and then you kind of went into athletics on a whim, or was it, that it was just trying out everything? Or
it was basically my big sister. My big sister had ran a cross country for the school. She ran the primary school's cross country, and she won it to everybody's surprise. She did a bit of running at school with the school club, but ran this cross country and won it. Everybody was totally shocked, and then was approached at that cross country, asked, are you part of a local club? And she said no, and would you like to come along to the club and try athletics? So she went along, and I basically went along with her just to kind of keep her company, and it kind of just ended up going from there. But it probably wasn't until I was maybe about 14, 15, and I was still doing my swimming. But I got to that stage where I was probably putting in less effort into my athletics, but having more success. And I was really kind of, the swimming, I wasn't getting that same success for what I was putting into it. And then it got to that stage where I kind of started having exams at school, and it was like, right, something's going to have to give somewhere. And the girls I was swimming against at that point, they were training sort of twice a day, every day. And I just couldn't kind of commit to that. And I was actually enjoying the athletics a lot more. And so I eventually sort of stepped away from the swimming and pursued the athletics a bit more seriously.
What was it about the athletics that kind of made you enjoy? Was it literally just the winning? Did you have an idea that you were really good at it from the start? And was it the 400 meter hurdles, 400 meters, or was it?
No, it was funny because when I did the athletics, I did a bit of everything, and I actually was more kind of long distance. I did a bit more 800s. I did a bit of cross country, and I was good. I was never the best, so I was kind of I would be in the podium and never really win. I'd maybe win the odd one here and there, but I'd always kind of be top three. And then I started trying a bit of sprint hurdles again. My older sister did that, so I kind of wanted to copy her and did a bit of sprint hurdling. And so I'd go to like the Scottish champs and the age group champs, and I'd do sprint hurdles and the 800. And I'd always kind of be top three in both. And then it was when I got to under 17, my coach said, right, 300 meter hurdles, that looks like it could be the event for you. And for those 2 years under 17, I was unbeaten at that event. And I thought, right, I found my event, this is the one I can actually win. And then obviously you transition from that into the 400 meter hurdles. And so that was kind of how it all happened that way. But I would always kind of like say I was always quite good. But I think what drew me to athletics was just the joy of it. I just really enjoyed going there and training. I had a really nice group of athletes that I trained with who were my mates and things like that. And so the social side really was there. It was good fun. And then, like I say, I started getting success with it. And that's kind of what made it a really easy choice over the swimming.
Because I mean, the record is, and I'll read out a few of them. I mean, you've probably heard this thousands of times already, but Olympic bronze medal, Rio 2016, European 400 meter champion, world silver in 4x4 relay, world indoor bronze medalist, European indoor silver medalist, 3 400 meter hurdle silver medals from each of the last 3 Commonwealth Games. I mean, you are the most decorated Scottish athlete of all time, if I'm right in saying that is actually a fact. I mean, when you think about that, is it quite surreal to think about how many medals you've done? Because there's that photo recently that's been out of the medals hanging over the hurdle and you in the back garden, and that it must be pretty crazy to think that you've actually won all that, looking back in your career.
It's funny because that's the first time I've had all the medals together at the one time. So the photographer had asked me, he'd sort of said, can you get all your medals together? And I thought, God, where are they all? And so getting them all out like that and seeing them together, that's the first time I've ever done that. And that was quite cool because I'd never seen them all together. And then you see, and you look at them and you see the ones that, and every single one's got their own story. And every single one means something different, and some mean a lot more than others do. But it was really interesting because it kind of just told the story of my career. I could look at the first one that I won, and that was in Delhi at the Commonwealth Games in 2010. And, all my memories of Delhi come flooding back, how amazing that trip was and the experiences there. And then, I look at my European gold from Zurich in 2014. And I remember standing on the podium getting that and crying because it was I just felt so relieved that I'd done it. And so that was really nice just to be able, but I don't think I've been able to do that until I've retired. I think you're in the swing of it when you're away competing. You're going from race to race, and every year you've got a champ, and you're kind of focused on that. And once that champ's over, you're thinking, right, what's next season got? So you never really get a chance to kind of just stop and reflect. And I think that's pretty much what I'll be doing in these next couple of years, being able to actually just step back and reflect on my career, which I've never really done during it, because you're in it and you're doing it. But it was nice to kind of see all the medals in a row and kind of think back on each one and what each one meant and how each one was won. And it was pretty cool.
So what are your plans now then? So what's the timeline for the next few weeks and months? What are your kind of ambitions after kind of competing on the track? Have you had anything in mind that you really want to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I'm quite fortunate enough that my transition has been quite, it's not been like the sudden decision to retire and then it's like, what am I going to do? I mean, I always had 2019, I was out pregnant. So I used that year to explore different areas, and I did a little bit of work for Education Scotland, did a bit of work with Scottish Athletics and Sports Scotland. And I think that showed me that I still want to be connected with sport. I still want to have an involvement with sport. I think it's really important that the sport has given me so much in my life. It's given me just so much lessons, skills. It's just meant so much to me. And I think it's only fair that I try and give something back. And so what I'll probably do within these next kind of few weeks is start sort of knocking on doors and having conversations with people that I think will be helpful, and try and find out, right, where can I fit in? Where can I be useful? What skills have I got there that I can help? And so it'll be about, just kind of exploring different avenues and having conversations. I mean, the nice thing is there's no real urgency at the moment. So it's a case of trying to just find my feet but again, not rest on my laurels and not be complacent. I have to really be proactive and go out there and have these conversations and see what's what out there. But I definitely want to be involved within sport. Whether it's athletics straight away, I think I need to kind of I'm on the board of Scottish Athletics, and I'm a trustee for the Athletics, the Athletics in Scotland Trust, and I'm also an ambassador for the Daily Mail. So I've still got my connections to athletics quite big there. But I think it's, again, explored a bit more within sport as well. So yeah, we'll just see what's out there. But it's the important thing, I think, now is to go and have some conversations with people and see where I might be useful.
100%. Is coaching something that you would want to do? And have you had conversations with Brian about that, if that's something that you want to kind of replicate almost?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think so. I don't necessarily think I have the patience and to be a coach. I think I was, as an athlete, I was pretty disciplined, and I remember when I first moved down to Bath to train with Malcolm, and I remember being in the squad there with the likes of Di Green and Andrew Pawsey, Lawrence Clark, Jack Green. It was a real high quality hurdles group. I remember going in there and learning a lot from just being in that company, being under Malcolm, and the real professionalism of being an athlete. And yeah, I think just, I don't know if I could have, what Malcolm had to be able to kind of just coach people. I think, I mean, I might be wrong, but for me, I was just like, let's just get on with it, and then let's just train and stuff like that. And I think I would need an athlete with probably my mentality to just get on with it and just, no dramas, no hassle, just go out and train hard, and it might work that way. But I think, yeah, I need to take a step away, I think, to kind of establish. I remember Christian Malcolm. I remember chatting to Christian Malcolm in 2015 at the World Champs, and he said he'd gone straight from sort of being an athlete straight to being given a role within British athletics as a coach. And he said he found it hard to differentiate because he'd gone pretty much from being an athlete straight to being a member of staff. And he was kind of like, even just kind of who to sit with at dinner, he'd automatically go and sit with the athletes, but actually he was a member of staff. So he kind of said to me at that point, I probably needed to just step away a little bit before going back in. And I kind of take that on board. I think, I probably need to step away from being an athlete, first of all, to establish that I'm not an athlete anymore, to then maybe go into another role like that. But yeah, who knows?
I guess just, looking at your career in general, one of the biggest highlights, and correct me if I'm wrong, was probably kind of the leadership roles within, the responsibilities that you had. I mean, you captained Scotland at the 2014 Commonwealth Games. You captained Great Britain, and that, I'm guessing, for both of you, were elected by your teammates, which must have been a massive privilege to get that responsibility. But then, of course, you were the flag bearer at the Gold Coast in 2018 as well. So alongside getting messages from people who've they say you've inspired within the sport, alongside the medals, you've had these kind of leadership responsibilities, and you must kind of look back at that now and think, wow, I learned so much in that period, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to especially be elected to that role as well.
Yeah, I think that was massive. 2017 in particular, because that was the very first time. So I was captain for the World Indoors in 2014. And that was the role was given then by the performance director. But I remember in 2017, it was the very first time that the team got to vote for who they wanted to be captain. And I remember just that not even being on my radar at all, that it would have been me. And getting the phone call to say that your teammates have voted you to be captain, it was just incredible, but a massive honour. And I think that just meant much more to me, because I was like, well, my teammates have chosen me. That's the highest honour you can get. The fact that they've said we want you to be our captain, and that was the same for when I carried the flag in 2018. It was voted for by the rest of the team Scotland. So yeah, they're really, really proud moments. And my mum actually said that was that's her highlight of my whole career. Not anything to do with races and anything like that, but she said that highlight of my career for her was carrying the flag for Scotland and getting voted to carry the flag by the teammates. So I think that's really funny that's that's what I'm proud of as well. I think is those moments they're the moments that you don't really think about when you're young and you're growing up and you're wanting to be an athlete. You think about going to an Olympics, think about going to Commonwealth Games and represent your country and winning medals. You don't think about, I could carry the flag for Scotland, or I could be voted to be a team captain for the rest of the squad. And yeah, those moments are really special, are really, just great moments for me.